Hi, and welcome to another edition of our Talking About series. We're going to be talking about how to get along with the kids, but we're also going to add a little bit of extra about the different learning styles, because that may be the reason why there is a clash between you and your children. But we also can get a clash with our neighbours, we can clash with our workmates, and we also clash with our spouses. Maybe not yours, but other people do. And we wanted to give you some helpful tips that will reduce the amount of stress, and they enable you to be the very best parent you possibly can. Often there is a disconnect between kids and parents. We as parents can often say, "You're talking back." And the kids are saying, "I'm just trying to explain." And obviously there's a disconnect with how kids and parents perceive the situation. We clash on all sorts of things. It could be the household chores, keeping their rooms tidy, technology, that's a huge one. Whose turn it is to clean up after the meal has been had, or who's going to put the dishwasher on. I mean, that big job to be able to push the button on. I mean, it can be an almost insurmountable conflict every night. People are saying, "Oh, is it my turn?" Yes. Oh, I'm exhausted. It could be the music style, the volume. It could be how they value money or appreciate what you do for them. It could be, putting the toilet seat down or even keeping the toilet clean. It could be curfews. It could be a number of things. And it could be just simply because, well, we're human. And kids will annoy each other just because they can. And sometimes kids will annoy you just because they can. The Bible has a lot of references about how we should get along with one another. In fact, it says in Romans, it says, "If it is all possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." And you say, live at peace with everyone? Do you know my son, my daughter? Oh, they're a nightmare. Well, it's your job as parents to live at peace. And it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And I know many of you may not have a faith, but the Bible has a lot of references about how we can do parenting more effectively. But as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, is about the learning styles. And that could be the reason why there is so much tension, so much conflict between you and your child, because you're not recognizing their unique learning style. There's a number of different types of learning styles. There's those who are visual and they like to see things for themselves. There's the auditory ones. They like to hear things. And it's not just hear it, they actually want to speak it out. Then there's the kinesthetic ones. They're the ones that like moving around all the time and doing things for themselves. And then there's the ones that are much more verbal. They're linguistic, it's known as. And then there's the logical or the mathematical style. And then there's the ones that like being with around people. They're the social, interpersonal. And then there's others that are learning style is more solitary. They're much more intrapersonal. But whether you're the main ones, visual, auditory, or kinesthetics, there's another two that can be often missed. And there are two styles. There's the analytical. They're the detail people. They're the ones that like to know exactly what's going on. And then there's the big picture. I'm a big picture type of guy. I like to know what the end result is. I don't care how we're going to get there. But if I have a child that is analytical, they want to know all the details. And they might ask lots of questions because they're also verbal and they want to actually hear themselves speak. And we're going to say, we're going to get there. And they go, what are we going to do then? And what are we going to do after that? And what are we going to do? And there's this tension, there's this conflict. And out of our frustration, we might say something or do something that out of our own frustration, but we're not realizing the unique way our child is wired. They have different learning styles, just like we have different learning styles. I'm a big picture, and my wife is like the analytical. She likes to know all the details. And if you've got a child that is any one of those different types of learning styles, you have to recognize that that could be a cause of tension. So we need to embrace our differences, and we need to see it from the other person's point of view, their perspective, and understand that they process things differently than maybe what you do. It doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't make yours more effective and better. It just means there's a difference. And so we need to recognize that the different learning styles and the way that children process things may be completely different, and that could be a cause of tension. And once we recognize that, we can say, oh, they're just asking lots of questions, or they want to be moving around, and it's not because they can't keep still. Well, in fact, they just can't keep still. You say, sit down, and they go, I can't, I need to get up. There's just a different way of doing things. And in fact, as a former children's pastor, I often got the child who couldn't sit still or I couldn't keep quiet, and I actually got them to do tasks. And that kept them occupied. They were either standing up holding a sign, or they actually were able to wriggle around, or they'd be able to, the ones that could read things out for them. It gave them a purpose. It gave them something to do. And then we didn't have the tension. And I would encourage you to do the same thing with your children, to understand that they are uniquely wired, made by God. And that alone could actually reduce the amount of tension, and you wouldn't have so much conflict in your household. But I'd like to give you some other tips if you like. And if your kids are watching this, I'll get them to come along and watch this with you, because we have to understand that mums and dads with their kids, there has been down through the centuries so much conflict. It's always been there. Not always in your household. Obviously, you get along well with your kids all the time. But in our household, we've had tension, we've had conflict, and understanding some of the rules or keys or tips on how to understand our children a little bit more effectively can reduce that tension. I often start with parents and I say, kids are humans and they have feelings. And I'd say for a kid, guess what? Mums and dads are human and they have feelings. And if we understand that alone, it can actually just reduce the tension. Just simply saying, that must frustrate my mum, or that must frustrate my child. I can understand why they become angry. So sometimes we need to validate or see it from their perspective, how annoying we can be. Even just as mums and dads, we might say something that is against what they want to do. And innately, we are selfish and we want things our own way, but we have to see it from the other person's point of view and understand they have feelings and they are human. One other keys that I would encourage you as parents is learn to respond, not react. And I'd say that for kids as well. Learn to respond, not react, which means when you respond, you're controlling your volume, you're controlling your tone, you're controlling your frustrations or behaviors or the thought process or your attitude. You're in control when you respond. But when you react, you yell or do something that you're not in control. And you might say something or do something in the heat of the moment. And I'd encourage you to learn to respond, not react. Another thing that's really important for parents to do is praise the effort more than results. I'll just say that again. Praise effort more than results. That alone, and sometimes we as parents could be driven by success, and we can live, vicariously through our kids' successes, either on the sporting field or in academics or in music or in art or whatever it may be. And sometimes we expect perfection. And by no means are any child perfect. And guess what, mums and dads? There are no perfect parents either. So we should praise the effort. If they're giving you 100% and they get a C, that's okay. They're giving it their best effort. I mean, I know kids that, they might get A's because it's very, very easy, but they're not putting in their best. And often we can actually get so fixated on the results that we forget that our kids are making the very best they can do. So often when we see a report card, we might say, there's A, C, A. Guess what gets our attention? The C. But if you look down on their effort from the teacher's point of view, they might not be doing very well, and the teacher can see that. They're not giving 100%, but they're making a concerted effort in mathematics or spelling or whatever it may be. So praising effort more than results. And mums and dads, we also need to have rules and boundaries. And I know that sounds, very straightforward, but we need to make sure those boundaries are very clear, and we need to convey that to our children. We need to ensure that they understand what the consequences, whether they break those boundaries or those curfews or whatever it may be, that they are very clear and not continuing to move. And ideally, it would be great for you to involve the kids in those decision-making processes. I already mentioned don't expect perfection, because it's never going to happen. But obviously, as kids, to relieve the amount of tension between the conflict between mums and dads, is we need to respect the rules and follow through on the consequences. Don't try and get out of it, especially if we've been involved in that decision-making processes, because that means that we're maturing. We're taking responsibility as children when we do make mistakes. And I'll give you a little hint if you're watching this, kids, is if you own it, the next time your mum and dad may actually reduce the sentence just simply because you're taking ownership. And that's a big thing. Another big part of responsibility is to reduce the amount of tension with mums and dads with their kids is actually give your kids chores and responsibilities. And so kids, to reduce the amount of stress and conflict that you have, is to follow through with those chores. Help around the household. Mums and dads, one of the big things that I often hear from teenagers is they just simply want you to be there. You don't have to solve every problem. You don't have to actually have a response for everything, and they simply want you to be fully present. And often we can get so tied up with our work, we can get so tied up with our own other responsibilities and the stresses of life, and we can have our mind going elsewhere. But our kids often simply want us to be fully present, not lost in our phones, not lost in all the other worries and stresses, just to simply be there and do life together. Doing life together and having fun. Often our kids, think that you were born old and they don't want to have anything to do with you, but all the research and all the data would say that our kids desire to have a healthy relationship with mums and dads. So if you are trying to have a healthy conversation with your kids and you get those monosyllabic responses, what did you do today? Nothing. Who'd you do it with? No one. Great talk. Often we have to just be simply present. My wife often calls this parenting by stealth. Just being around, hanging around. It's amazing. Simply just being in the vicinity, letting them do what they want to do, and you're just in the area, and suddenly that conversation may just pop out of nowhere, and they might say something that's quite deep and meaningful, and you're there, fully present. And I know it may seem difficult in our fast-paced world, but our kids are going to grow up so quickly. And I'd encourage you to find the time, go on a date with your kids, build that relationship with them. And often we want to get involved in their world, but the best thing you can do to get involved in their world is to invite them into your world. What do you do? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What was it like when you were 16? What was it like when you were 12? Tell them those stories, and I can guarantee your kids will open up and think, you did have a life. You're not just old. You've got some things of interest, and you can relate to me. And when we do that, when we open up our world to their world, the tension and the conflict can be significantly reduced. So if the kids are watching this, I'll be saying, have fun with your mum and dad, because you're going to grow up and leave the nest. And those memories are the things that are going to last forever, creating healthy, positive, memorable moments with your kids. And kids, if I was going to say one more thing to you, was parenting is a tough gig. And really, they're experimenting with you because you're unique. You didn't come with an instruction manual. You didn't come with a guaranteed return to you if you didn't turn out. They're learning as they go, and every child's uniquely wired, and we actually learnt that a little while ago about how different we process things. And so they're learning. So cut them a bit of slack and understand that it is a difficult job, and there's a lot of other stressors that you may not be aware of, but I'd encourage you just to show greater appreciation of what they do for you and not take it for granted, because parenting is a really enjoyable and the most fulfilling role that you may have in the future, but it is one of the toughest and the most relentless and often not very appreciated at times. The Bible, and I'll share just 3 final Bible verses that may help you navigate and challenge you to think about where you're at. It says in James chapter 1 verse 19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So mums and dads, I'll encourage you, how are your listening skills? Are you quick to start speaking? Are you quick to get angry? Remember, learning to respond, not react. Do you have a short fuse? Because guess what? Your kids are watching what you do. And so this being quick to listen, slow to speak. Often, sometimes our kids just want us to listen, to be fully present, not interrupting, not judging, not coming to the conclusions, because they're just learning where they fit into the world. And that would actually reduce a great deal of stress. It says in Proverbs 15 verse 1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So that's talking about your tone, your volume. You know, you wouldn't like it if your boss was yelling at you all the time. It would be an unpleasant working environment. Or picking faults when you make a mistake every time. So mums and dads, we don't want to create an environment at home like that at all. We want to create a haven. There's peace. There's a place where kids feel safe. And if we can watch our tone and our volume, it actually reduces the amount of tension. And it's very hard, especially if the moment on the inside you're freaking out and you really want to get angry, but if you're controlling it, sometimes you might have to remove yourself before saying or speaking something that you can later regret speaking out of turn. I'd encourage you watching your tone and volumes, because a gentle answer turns away wrath. And finally, similar to our opening one Bible verse from Romans that says in Ephesians 4 verse 3, make every effort to keep the unity of spirit through the bond of peace. It takes work, mums and dads, and it takes work from kids as well to get along with one another. And I can guarantee if you put some of these principles that I've shared with you into your homes, don't try and do them all at once, just do one or two things on a regular basis and become the norm in your household. I am sure that you will get along far greater and building that healthy relationship, because all the research would point that when there is a healthy relationship between mums, dads, and their kids, they're less likely to do risky behavior, less likely to do more conflict. They'll do better academically, socially, psychologically, just simply by learning to have a healthy relationship with your children. So it's quite a challenge when you think about those Bible verses about living in unity and making every effort, watching our tone and our volume, because a gentle answer turns away wrath, and being quick to listen. So a question I'd like to ask you is, where are you now and where do you want to be? And if there is tension and conflict in your household, maybe put a few of these things into practice. And I'm sure if you do them well, that relationship will continue to build and be healthy, and you won't have as much conflict and tension in your household. Well, I hope you'll have found those tips helpful for you. And if we at Focus on the Family in Australia can be of any benefit to you, please do not hesitate contacting us at families.org.au. God bless.